Welcome to the first episode of Soccer Travels, the podcast. It's been a long time coming, creating a podcast for Soccer Travels, which is the blog I started about a decade ago. And I thought that it was about time. Everybody has a podcast, so why not Soccer Travels? And why not giving you a monthly podcast talking about some of the different adventures, some of the different matches getting out to, and some of the other things going on, not necessarily in the world of football. This isn't necessarily an analysis and news podcast, but more of about adventures, about doing something, about getting out there and seeing games. And so it's great to have you here if you are listening to the podcast on your favorite podcatcher, or if you're just watching on YouTube. I've made a video version of the podcast as well, as I come to you from the Soccer Travels office. But again, great to have you here, and for episode 1 of the podcast. And if you want to read about some of the adventures that I've gotten up to over the years, then of course you can always go over to the Soccer Travels blog, which you can find the link in the show notes. Or you can also pick up the original Soccer Travels book, which was released, a long time ago now, which has a lot of stories, a lot of first-hand stories, basically a journal of going and seeing games from, starting over 15 years ago. When I saw began a journey, I guess you could say, going abroad, living abroad, and taking in games. And, that is kind of what Soccer Travels is all about. It's about going out, seeing the games, and having fun. Now, back in 2020, we had the pandemic, and I'm sure you, maybe like me, you were a bit afraid to go out after it happened, and you weren't really sure about getting out there and going to do a lot of events, social events, football matches especially. I know it took a while for me to really want to get out and to go see games. I think my first game back was a random game I picked to go see Oldham play. And I think that was actually last season. So it took a while to really get out there and want to be around people and to see games again, not just watch them on TV from my living room or the office. So, now that we're doing the podcast, I want to get out and to see much more. And that's what's really been happening this year, which has been great, a great thing to do. And so on this month's podcast, and I plan to do this more of a monthly podcast rather than a weekly podcast, because there's just not enough time. There's not enough, things to say really on a weekly basis. As I said, we're not going to talk about analysis. We're not going to talk about matches going on in news, really. We're going to focus more on some of the adventures and getting out there. And so for the podcast, we're just going to go monthly. And I thought that today we talk about a couple of the games that I got out to not too long ago, back in February, which were two enjoyable games. It's really hard these days to get out to games on a regular basis. I tried to do the season ticket thing, and I just found that there were a lot of games that I just wasn't going to, just because of life, work, and also my son plays grassroots football, so I'm often out seeing him play on the weekends, as well as his other sporting activities. So, getting out to 2 games in a month really is was actually a really good a good month of getting to games. So we're going to talk about a couple of things like that. Those games. Talk about a couple of the games I got out to, which one was Wrexham. Really excited to get out to see them play finally, and also got out to see Wigan, which isn't too far away from my home. So guys, let's talk about those games in the next segment. Okay, so the first game I got out to during the month was, and that's the month of February, that was Wrexham and Altrinchim. And I wrote about this on the blog, so you can go over there and read a little bit more in depth about that game. It was a really enjoyable time. I'd seen, I've been planning to go see Wrexham for quite a while, ever since Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney took over the team, which seems like ages ago now, as they try to get out of the National League Premier division. But I had planned for a long time to go see them, but this season really found the time to look into going to more to go see them at Wrexham at the racecourse ground. But unfortunately, every time I seem to have a free minute or a free time to go over there to Wrexham, which isn't too far away from where I live, roughly 60 minutes, 70 minutes drive. Unfortunately, tickets were always sold out. But just so happens that they were playing Altrinchim back in February, on February the 4th. They were playing at Altrinchim, which isn't too far away from my home, and an easy drive, actually. So took my son, Finn, to see Altrinchim and Wrexham. And to be honest, I didn't realize that Altrinchim had a team in the National League Premier. I knew they had a non-league team, hadn't ever seen them play, didn't really know much about them. But I was surprised to know that they were in the National League Premier. Now, I don't follow a lot of non-league football. I do like to, check out the scores. If it's on TV, on BT Sport, I'll watch it. But overall, I don't necessarily follow it too in depth. But picked up some tickets for this game on February the 4th at Altrinchim's Moss Lane, which, again, never been to. Didn't even know where it was. But picked up these tickets, £23 all in, 21 for an adult, 2 for a child, which was a fantastic price. But Finn and I set out over there to Altrinchim. And if you don't know where Altrinchim is, it is a suburb in the southern part of Manchester, a nice little leafy suburb with some large houses over there, older houses, a nice area. And Moss Lane is kind of stuck right in there. And upon really getting to Moss Lane, which there's very little parking, so if you plan to go over there, be ready to park on the street or at the nearby Tesco and walk over. But the ground is just kind of like in the middle of this nice area, really. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised how nice the ground was, because I've been to a few non-league teams, non-league games, and even Football League teams in League One and League Two. And the stadiums are a bit dire. I mean, going last year to Oldham to see them play Boundary Park, and this is a former Premier League team from not too long ago, first Premier League team to be relegated out of the Football League, a former Premier League team to be relegated out of the Football League, and I was just kind of shocked how dire part of the ground was and how it looked like it was in disrepair. But I thought Moss Lane was quite nice. Upon walking up to it, it had a great frontage, I guess you could say, and some new bits to it that have been put together. And it's a lot like a lot of lower league and non-league grounds, where you have the original structure and the original ground that was built, but there have been pieces added to it. So it's kind of like an amalgamation, I guess you could say, of different parts put together into one stadium. So you can definitely see the different pieces that have been put together in this ground. Now, before going to the game, my son was very familiar with Wrexham. He's played with them on FIFA 23, and more importantly, he's watched the Welcome to Wrexham documentary on Disney Plus. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, I can't believe you let your son watch that." He's only 9 at the moment. I can't believe you've let him watch that because of the language and this and that and the other thing. And just with all the different things that he could be watching, all the Marvel movies, all the different things that are available for streaming, the video games, all of those different things, I really don't think that Welcome to Wrexham is any worse than any of those other alternatives out there. And I know when I was growing up, my parents were baby boomers, and some of the stuff that we were able to watch in the late 80s and early 90s, I mean, you look back at even Goonies and things like those, you think, ooh, I don't know if my son should watch that in 2023. So definitely some of the things that he's able to watch nowadays is very different than what we watched as kids, or when I was growing up at least. But he's familiar with the show. He really enjoys the show. He thinks it's entertaining. He obviously knew who Ryan Reynolds was before, just because of Deadpool, and a lot of his friends are already getting to see that film, which he's absolutely not allowed to see that. But he was familiar with Wrexham before the game and some of the players. And as we walked up to the ground, we were met by some stewards who basically just asked us, where who we were fans of, which supporters were we, because it's a ground where it's general admission seating. A lot of standing room. I'd say 3/4 of the ground is standing room only. But they had to segregate the stadium because Wrexham brought maybe 1,500 fans to the game. A fantastic group of supporters, and you could hear them as they were walking up to the stadium singing the songs. Unfortunately, not the Declan Swan song, which I get stuck in my head every time I hear it. But we were asked which team we were there to support, and my son's standing there next to me. He's just like, Wrexham, 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 Wrexham. And unfortunately for him, I made the executive decision to actually go into the Altrinchim Inn because, I didn't really think that going into the Wrexham Inn, the away support inn, would actually be good for a 9-year-old kid just yet. I know some people might disagree, but so I took him into the family section in the Altrinchim Inn, which was actually a really good spot, really good line of sight for the game. Terraced part you covered, which was great because it was a rainy night, misty night in South Manchester, and the singing, it was great from the Altrinchim fans, but the Wrexham fans were making just as much noise, if not more, at the other side of the ground, and it was an evening that BT Sport was there as well. It was a televised game. It was at 5:30, I believe, 5:45 in the evening, and because it was, a late game and televised, this was the biggest crowd Altrinchim had had since the 60s, apparently. I think it was nearly 6,000 or over 6,000 that were at the stadium on the night. So a great crowd for this game. And the thing was, like, a lot of these people do not come out to your typical Altrinchim game. There were loads of people there standing near us and around us who I was overhearing their conversations. They weren't even really invested into the game. They were just talking about living in London and these kinds of things, and driving up for the match that day to see it. And to be honest, they didn't seem very much like football fans because they weren't invested in the game. They were just chatting away or eating chips or whatever. And it was a really good game. And I have to say that the quality that Altrinchim and Wrexham put on was a lot better than some of the stuff I see at League One and League Two level. They wanted to get the ball on the ground and play it. And it was an entertaining game, 2-1 in the end to Wrexham. And I guess the only downside of this game was the halftime. We decided to go into the community bar, or the community building, I guess it is, there at the Altrinchim Moss Lane Stadium. It's the only place where they serve alcohol in the stadium, because we needed to drink. The very few food stalls were kind of overwhelmed on the night. So lines were taking like 30 minutes to get through to get something. So we decided, well, we'll try the bar to get a drink. But man, it was packed. There were literally, it was kind of like just a night out for a lot of people, going out, not necessarily to watch the game because they were that invested in it, but to watch the game, to have some drinks, and to have a good time, then set off for something else, maybe in the city. And so the bar was crammed. We were in there for the entirety of halftime and probably 15 minutes into the next half. So we missed the opening goal, which Wrexham scored, which was unfortunate. And then once we got our drinks, they wouldn't let us leave the building, the community bar, even though we were drinking J2Os. We had to stay in there and watch on the TVs in there. But luckily, we got back outside and got back into the terrace to see Altrinchim score to level the game before Wrexham got a late winner. Which I'm standing there with my son, who's cheering on Wrexham as we stand in the Altrinchim section, and just had to calm him down a little bit so we didn't draw too much attention to ourselves in the game. But it was a lot of fun. I'm heading out to North Wales in a couple of weeks. Actually, maybe more in the summertime. I've got some things going on over there, so I'm gonna stop by Wrexham, check out the racecourse ground, since they're rebuilding the Cop end of it. One of the things I enjoy doing, and maybe you do too, it's just going and checking out the grounds, just going out and looking. Not necessarily going on the tours or anything like that. It's to go and to just kind of have a look at the grounds, to walk around them. A few years ago, I was training for a marathon, and ended up going down to running through Manchester and down near Old Trafford. Not a Manchester United supporter at all, but took 10 minutes just to kind of walk around the ground, go through, look at all the kind of stuff there and everything. It's just something that I really enjoy. And one of the things about football compared to, say, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, any other sports there are, and that is that in football, especially in Europe, The stadiums have a very distinct feel. It's not cookie cutter. It's not the same thing. I mean, if you watch an NBA game, it feels like it could be at the same place every night. And that's one thing about Major League Soccer as well, that they've built all these new stadiums. So everything just feels the same. There's no characteristics that are interesting. There's no individualness to those stadiums. And the stupid thing is about American sports is to make these stadiums unique. They have all these crazy food menus, or they have like you get your hair cut during a game. All these like gimmicks that they think will bring out the people, when some people like me, they just want to go out and enjoy the ground. They want to enjoy the stadium. And that's kind of why you see, like in America, the Boston Red Sox or the Chicago Cubs, two of the oldest baseball teams there, having these really old stadiums that are kind of museums, as well as the ground that they play in. And that, again, like I said, that's one of the things I enjoy. And so I'm going to go over to Wrexham, check it out. Never been there before. I've driven by it, through it a couple times. But go over there and check it out, and have a little walk around the race course ground and see what it's like. There. I've done that multiple times around here in the UK, as well as in Europe, and it's just something that I enjoy. Not necessarily going on the tour, because sometimes that can feel kind of plastic. Just walking around, enjoying it yourself, taking some pictures, that kind of a thing. All right, so the other game I got out to during this month was, or I guess I should say in February, was Huddersfield Town taking on Wigan, which you might not think that sounds like a really exciting game, but to be honest, it was a really entertaining night, or entertaining day, and definitely, you know what, I have to say, you might want to check out a Wigan game sometime. Okay, so on February 11th, I checked out Wigan playing Huddersfield at the DW Stadium. Now, living in the northwest of England, one of the great things is you never have a professional football team. You always have a professional football team kind of nearby you, and so Wigan Athletic is quite close to where I live. Within an hour's drive. So I, with one of my friends who is also a transplant in the UK. He also enjoys just going to random football matches. And so he and I decided to get a couple tickets to go over and see Wigan play Huddersfield. So I give my son the day off to enjoy his time, as a 9-year-old, not to just go over and watch a bunch of football. So my friend and I, Jonathan, went over to see Wigan and Huddersfield in a 6-point relegation battle in the Championship. Now, tickets, 25 quid for some tickets, and we were basically at the top tier of the main stand, which gave us a great sight line. It was you could see the whole pitch, you could see all the action below you, and I have to say, I would sit there again because of the advantage point that you had to see the whole pitch and see all the action below you. Now, I've been to Bolton's, which is now called the Tough Sheet Stadium, which is ridiculous. But I've been to Bolton Wanderers Stadium before, and been up to Huddersfield as well. And they, like Wigan, have a very similar kind of stadium. It's like that late 90s, early 2000s built stadium. Very efficient, I guess you could say. It's easy to get in, it's easy to get out. It's built on the kind of the outskirts of town. It's a stadium that's, it's very open, it's very spacious. It's very different than going to, say, Old Trafford, or going to Anfield, at least going to Anfield before it was renovated with the new main stand. But the DW Stadium, it was, a lot better than I expected it to be. Now, Wigan, like I said, it's a newer stadium, so it's been built, purpose-built in a part of the town where they were able to build a shopping center, a retail park around there. So you've got, if you want to spend a whole day out, you've got shopping, you've got food, and then you've got a game, and then, you can go and do those things all over again. One of the best things about it is there's a Dunkin' Donuts right there, which was great because I had a donut on the way home, and it was nice. And, in the UK, you don't always have a Dunkin' Donut around compared to where I grew up in America. But Jonathan and I headed over to the game. Now, if you're going to a Wigan game and you want to get there early and have a bite to eat or get some drinks, then you better get there early, because the traffic around that retail park makes it really difficult to get in there quickly. I'd say it took us a good 20 minutes to get through traffic and to park into the retail park, which again, the parking was fantastic. All you had to do was just park right there in the retail park. So parked up there and headed over to the stadium, which is just, you walk right through walk past the shops and the restaurants, and there it is. It's right there, looking right at you. And like I said, purpose built right there to be able to make it easy for the fans to get to. And unfortunately, because of the traffic, we got there a little bit late, and we were going to go into the I think it's the Dave Whalen bar, which is down on ground level of the stadium. We were going to go in, but due to not wanting to miss anything and get inside, we decided to go ahead and walk around the back and to our entrance to go up to the main stand. And the stadium, we walked in, very easy to get into, wasn't packed or anything like that. And to be honest, I don't think I ever, back when Wigan were in the Premier League, I don't think I ever watched a game on TV where Wigan had a full house. There were always empty seats, and I can always remember that. I mean, that's 15 years ago, I guess, 10, 15 years ago that they were in the Premier League. So, but I always remember, those empty seats, those empty blue seats there at the DW Stadium. But as I say, easy to get into the stadium, walk right up, and you know what you have to do when you're in Wigan? You have to eat a pie. Pies are massive in Wigan, and you have to have one. Their mascot is a freaking pie. It's named Krusty the pie. So you got to get a pie if you go to the DW Stadium. So of course, went up, got a meat potato pie, got a pint of beer. It had some El Madri on tap, so grabbed one of those, had the pie, and I have to say, I hadn't had a pie in a long time, and it was absolutely delicious with a nice cold beer. Now, one of the great things about the DW Stadium, and this has nothing to do with the football, is the queues. The lines were very short. It was a very efficient bar staff, way better than some of the staff that I've experienced at other stadiums. Simple card payments, get your food, get your drink, and get on with your day. And there were also loads of different food stands, loads of different concession stands. And there was even a Brewdog bar that you could go up and get Brewdog signature beers. Unfortunately, I didn't go and do that. I had the one and the pie, and that filled me up enough. And not that big of a fan of Brewdog beer myself. But anyway, got that. And, one of the nice things was we were able to eat that, drink that, and watch the end of the Chelsea-West Ham game that was going on that day. So a really nice start to the game, really nice start to the experience, I guess I should say. Headed up to our seats, and the first thing that was very clear is that we were sitting amongst a lot of the old, crusty Wigan supporters, men in their 50s and 60s who have been coming for years. And the guy I sat next to, he was on his phone the whole time playing a game, playing some kind of a game, Tetris-y type game. But he's spending his whole time just playing this game as the action is going on. Didn't even really pay attention to the game throughout, because he was playing this game. And Jonathan and I think, I know for myself, I felt a little bit out of place, because we were, this isn't our patch. This isn't, we're the outsiders compared to these people, and very, very different feel than what I felt when Finn and I went to see Altrinchim and Wrexham the week before. But a really entertaining game, 0-0 throughout until late in the game when Wigan were able to get a goal to win the game. And it was a huge win, because it was like I said, a 6-point game. Jack Watmo got an 81st minute headed goal. And this game, it was a little bit short on quality. 6 shots for Wigan, 5 shots for Huddersfield. 1 shot on target for Wigan, and that was the goal. So it wasn't, the greatest game between these two teams, which is unfortunate, because I thought the experience was really good. And you know what? Getting to see that late goal kind of changed that thinking, how I felt about the experience, because it was a good experience, but seeing the goal, seeing the winner, especially for the home team, that made it even more special, even better. So I really enjoyed that, really had a good time checking out Wigan. So, if you're in the Wigan area, you might want to check out a game sometime. 25 quid for a ticket for where we were sitting. And, if you like hopping around grounds, if you like going to see things, it's worth an experience. And you got the food afterwards, you got the food before, you got the drinks. It's not a bad time to go see a Wigan Athletic match. All right, so those were the two games I got out to in February, and I'm looking into some different games here in March to head out to. One of my local non-league teams. I haven't actually seen them play since the end of the summer. Might try to get out to see them again. It's 5-6 quid to get into the game for there, and I'm also looking to go out and see Liverpool women play again. My son and I went out, saw them play at the start of the season against Chelsea in a really entertaining game. I think it was 2-1 in the end with Liverpool winning. Although they've struggled since then in the Women's Super League. And, that was one of the things I was really excited for this football season was the Women's Super League after last year's Women's Euros win for England. I was really excited to follow the Super League, but I've personally felt that the league just hasn't kicked on from that. They haven't carried on that momentum. And I found myself kind of, falling out of interest. But I think you need to get out to see at least one more game this season for the Liverpool women, as the season is going to be wrapping up not too far from now. So maybe this month, able to get out to that. Maybe next month, we'll see about that. But right now, those are the games that I'm thinking about going out and seeing. And like I said before, over the summer, one of the big plans is, or in a couple of weeks, maybe a month or so, to head over to the racecourse grounds, check it out as I go through Wrexham. Got some things going on over there, so might check that out. And of course, probably head out to Anfield again soon if that's possible. And before I go, so really enjoyed doing this, and hope you've enjoyed it as well, whether you're downloading this on your favorite podcatcher or you're watching on YouTube here on the Soccer Travels YouTube page. I've been kicking around the idea of starting this new YouTube channel for Soccer Travels as well. I had kind of combined a couple of YouTube channels previously into one, and lost a little bit of focus what I was doing with the Soccer Travels YouTube page. So going to start now hopefully populating this with some more videos as well. So on the YouTube channel, if you want to go over there and check those out, some different things, football shirts, as well as some adventures to games and whatnot. So if you're listening to the blog, go over, check out the Soccer Travels YouTube channel at Soccer Travels blog on YouTube. And of course, you can go over to the actual Soccer Travels website and you can read up on some of the things that I've written there, travel stuff, as well as just some thoughts that I have, as well as a few things on players and whatnot. So you can go over there and check that out. And one of the things I wanted to do before I go is, I read a lot of football books, a lot of sports books, because I work in sports and media, and so I read a lot. And one of the books that I actually read this year, January of 2023, is a book called In the Heat of the Midday Sun. And you can see it right there. Pitch Publishing put this out. I have loads of Pitch Publishing books. A lot of them really appeal to me because a lot of them are about adventure, travel, and sports and football. But I picked up this book. I think I got it for Christmas, actually. And it's by Stephen Scragg. You can find it on YouTube or wherever fine books are sold. And I have to say, this is a really, really enjoyable book. It's the indelible story of the 1986 World Cup. The Argentina winning World Cup there with Maradona, the hand of God, all that good stuff. And one of the things about this book is, growing up, my first World Cup was the 1994 World Cup in the USA. Obviously, I grew up in the US, and that was the first time I actually got to see real professional soccer, real professional football. I'd played a couple of years even before that, but I didn't get it. I didn't know it. I didn't see it. I didn't really understand it until getting to see the 1994 World Cup, and it changed my life. And going back now over the years, growing up, I've learned about the World Cups that have come before it, including ad nauseum. It feels like the 1990 World Cup, Italian 90. I just feel like that World Cup gets so much space to be written about and talked about. And it was one of the worst World Cups there is, which is funny that people have such a fondness for it, yet it is terrible. And a lot of people still say it's terrible, even though they're fond of it. But, I didn't, the 80s with football, I was a kid. I was very small. I was in diapers. So I didn't really, have much of a starting point for the 80s. So this was a fantastic book that really delved into the 1986 World Cup, around some of the things that were happening around it, things leading up to it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good read, and it was one of those books where I struggled to put it down once I started it. It didn't take long to read it, but again, it wasn't just a recap of the World Cup. This happened A, B, C, D. This was about a lot of backstory. There's a lot of backstory, and each chapter kind of takes one team and talks about their journey to the World Cup and their experience at the World Cup. And again, I really enjoyed it. It was probably one of the best, or I guess maybe I could say better, pitch publishing books that I have in my collection. I really enjoyed that. And that is my Soccer Travels book recommendation for this month. So, yeah, Midday Sun, in the heat of the midday sun, I should say. All right, guys, thank you for listening to the first episode 1 of the Soccer Travels podcast. If you're listening to it on your favorite podcast catcher, or if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. And, subscribe to the podcast if you liked it, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stay up to date on everything I post with Soccer Travels. And, of course, you can go over to the Soccer Travels website, and you can read up on all the stuff I post there. And let me know what you think of the podcast, and let me know what you want to hear about, what possibly we could talk about on next month's podcast. I really enjoyed doing this, and I hope to interact with you guys as well. You can go over to you can go over to Twitter, and you can follow me there at Drew M. Farmer on Twitter, and you can interact with me on Twitter. I'm always posting quite often, and so check me out there on Twitter. And if you want to check me out on Instagram, you can always go over there to Drew Farmer 15, and follow me on Twitter, or follow me on Instagram. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next month on the Soccer Travels blog podcast. Thanks.